Good afternoon, everybody, and time for another Friday update.
It's good to see you.
Oh. Oh.
I'm old enough to be a dad. I'm allowed to make dad jokes.
I am so proud of him right now. So proud. How do we sound? Okay, hey, the thumbs up from John means we can start. So, look, we've got a big 3 pages worth of top 10-ish. So let's start with the first one, which is good and not so good, depending on how you look at things, and bad. It's discontinuing the 32-bit client. Now, we've been warning about this for a while. As you folks know, other companies have been doing this, abandoning 32-bit, because 32-bit clients, 32-bit games are just really old.
Intel hasn't shipped a 32-bit processor in 12 years.
Long time. So, as we've been telling you folks, once we do that, sorry, my glasses just broke, and I am trying to readjust them, and they really don't want to stay on my head, so I'm like, this is perfect. This should be interesting. I may have to get new glasses for the stream. So, again, we've been warning about it. For most of you folks, even if you have an old machine, it may not be the fact that you have a 32-bit hardware. The odds are you don't have 32-bit hardware. It's probably Windows. So please.
Yeah, if you have a 64-bit chip, but you installed a 32-bit version of Windows for whatever reason, and you are clinging to Windows 7 for dear life, at least, Windows 10 is the future. That's just how it's going to be. You might as well get on that bus. But even if you have Windows 7, install a 64-bit version of Windows 7. In this case, your PC. I personally find that it's good to just spring cleaning, wipe my hard drive, and reinstall Windows. I mean, it's not quite like Windows 95 days, but it still doesn't hurt to do that, every couple years. So if you're still running, if you have a 32-bit install of Windows 7, maybe consider doing that and putting on a 64-bit install of Windows 7. Or, join the glorious future of Windows 10.
So you guys and gals need to do that. We're going to be discontinuing it in 30 days. So you have plenty of warning. Plenty of time to get ready. Again, this is something we've talked about. Other companies are doing it. It's time. It's past time, quite frankly.
We gave you so much time.
Yeah.
And still, like 1 or 2% of the people who connect are still doing that. But the amount of, we don't want to spend more of our limited development time fixing bugs that, if there are 2 clients, that means 2 clients to QA. That means 2 clients to test. That means, there's 2 different builds of the game that we have to worry about, checking both of them for bugs and finding bugs that only affect 32-bit, and that's just time better spent.
And there's also things we get, obviously, as we've been talking about, advantages for the game running the 64-bit client. So it's not just maintaining 2 different clients, so that's a big part of it. It's also because we needed to go to 64-bit to do the things we do. So please, folks, it's not a question of if we're going to do it. We are going to do it. And if you folks, and obviously you are gamers, every other company is going to be doing it or has already done it. So if you haven't upgraded, now's the time. All right, so that was number 1. It only gets better and a lot better from here. Number 2, work in progress, the improved ability system. So Rob pulled all the character 2.0 work over to the ability branch for testing yesterday. VFX hookup is moving along nicely. Progression system, Christina fixed up the progression system so it is compatible with the new ability system. And we've also been working on performance improvements.
Yeah, I mean, Rob's done a lot of stuff of just merging, kind of there was a team of people who were working specifically on abilities, and then we were just, the people who were not working specifically on abilities were working on, the stuff you were seeing on Hatchery. And, those two things got a little bit of divergence, put them back together. We found some bugs when, all right, well, this was fine on its own and this was fine on its own, but there was some interesting interaction there. And Rob's been doing a lot of work to just nail down all of that. So, the unification of new characters and new abilities, lots of just stuff.
Lots of good stuff. So, Andrew, why don't you take the next two because they are VFX and particle improvement.
Okay. I've been focusing on the main client and in preparation for doing more and more with spell effects, trying to add that little bit of shiny. And like if you look at the things we're doing where you can build an ability out of components, then we need to take our client-side visual effects to the next level and make them scripted. And this is in support of things like the ability interaction, where fire and water do things when they come together. And so I've been doing work to make the client effects into a more scriptable form, so that it's not like there are. I blasted through just the sheer list, and there is something like 19,000 possible abilities that you can create. And like every time someone builds a new, adds one new rune to the game, then that adds like thousands of other possible abilities. And it's just, that's not a thing that we can create we cannot create a unique effect for each of those. But also we want them to all look slightly different, and so putting in a little bit of scripting where okay, well this will like making it so that the shape of a particle system will morph depending on all right, well this expands the cone by 10% and things like that, or this adds a little green sparkly to that, or all those kinds of things. It needs to be scriptable. And so you might have a status that changes your change all fire attacks into ice attacks. It's just those kinds of things where times 19,000 skills where statuses could then change them. So it's just we've had to make effects into something that are more procedural, and I've been doing work towards that. So that's where I am. I'll probably have some nice gifs of people on fire for the update email when that goes out.
Yay, Rob on fire.
Why is it always Rob?
Because Rob likes being on fire.
Yeah, and also in the course of that, as I was diving into that, I spotted something where, it just an easy, hey, this could make this so much faster. So particle effects in general take about 30% less CPU time to update, which means, if you have a giant wizard party going on, and how wizards like to party, then, that is better frame rates for everyone.
So you're saying there's a lot of whizzing going on?
Oh.
I can make a dad joke too.
Mark, that was cheese whiz right there.
Yes, it was. It was very cheesy. Okay, next.
So,
go ahead.
I'm going to take the next two. So Wiley has also been working on particles. He's been doing a whole bunch of things about making just orientations and trails and stuff like that work better. And he and I have been back and forth a lot, talking about cross products and quaternions and all that good stuff that, how you represent rotations in 3D space. Do you know the right hand rule?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to teach them about the right hand
Go ahead.
rule. So, there's two coordinate systems, and, the right hand rule is if you put your thumb pointing up the z-axis of your world, whichever direction the z-axis is, and you curl your fingers around, it goes x to y. And, the other coordinate system is the left-hand rule.
Uh-huh.
And, all sorts of different ways to represent rotations with math, and that's what we do. It's all about the right hand rule.
Math. So number 5, design item. Ben wrote up a design doc for placeable spawn points to go with the respawn system design, and is now working on updating the achievement system design. So kind of respawn, I think, is something that a few of you folks have asked us about over the last few years. Number 6, ATI bug fix. So in last weekend's test, we had an issue with ATI cards. As you folks know, we've been focusing mostly on NVIDIA. This is not because we hate ATI or hate AMD, hate anyone else other than NVIDIA and Intel. We don't.
They haven't been ATI in like 15 years.
I'm sorry?
They haven't been ATI in like 15 years.
I know, but it's still there. It's still ATI. But we don't hate any of these people. We simply, have focused on Intel and NVIDIA. NVIDIA because we've been friends with them a long time. They obviously are a big part of this with Vfx. Same, applies to Intel as well. So the good news is we've got a fix in. It should solve the problem. So we told you folks we were going to make that a priority item for us, and obviously we did.
Well, also on the the topic of bugs from last week's test, we did a big crafting test last weekend, and a problem a lot of people had was their Voxes just disappeared and got lost, and they, the first time it did it, well, you can just like abandon and respawn it, but then there's a 6-hour cooldown before you can abandon and respawn it again, and so everyone, like, once that happened, they got one shot, and then they couldn't play in the test anymore, so Christina found and fixed that one.
Yep. So number 7, work in progress design, sieges and more. So this is my item. I've been doing some prototyping this week on some of the more interesting elements of sieges and Camelot Unchained. I've got screens, my PC screens, filled with all sorts of colors and cells and other things. So moving along really nicely. I can't wait to talk about it, but I can absolutely guarantee Siegers in Camelot Unchained will not be just simply walk up to a keep, a fort, a castle, knock on the door, or use a treb on a door, or use anything else, battering ram on a door. There's more to it.
Is this the thing you've been writing JavaScript for?
It is the thing I've been writing JavaScript for.
Yeah, Mark's got out the Google Sheets, and he's writing like little simulations of, how things evolve over time in JavaScript inside the cells of the sheet.
Which is kind of fun and cool. Okay, moving down to number 8, work in progress, tech tools. So Bull is working on the architecture for a system that will keep all the running tools in sync with each other in near real time. This has, of course, become more important because, hey, we've got this studio here, we've got a studio out in Seattle, and we've got some remote folks who are not just in Seattle or Virginia. So, it's not a sexy thing, as we always say about Bull. Most of the stuff isn't really sexy, but it's kind of really necessary. So thank you for Bull for doing the necessary work.
It's not sexy to you, but every time I, click on a particle or click on a model or something, and the editor responds instantly instead of like going on a round trip to the database server and back because it's all cached locally in memory. That's sexy to me. I like computers that are super responsive. This is one of the kinds of things where we hit the gas with the just make the editor be a direct front end over the database, and you click on a box and it just asks the database for what's behind that instead of having it already on your computer. And that was really great with 3 people and who are all physically in the same office, and but it started to feel more and more like an old point of sale system from 1988 or something. You remember those?
I certainly do. I worked on POSs.
Green screen terminals at your library.
I remember the days.
So yeah, now it just draws stuff because it knows it locally.
Okay, number 9, concept work, additional armor. So, as we've been saying, we are going to continue to make armor, weapons, items for the game, and we've been doing that with the realm-specific armor. I think we'll have things in the update, but I'm not 100% sure. Number 10, work in progress, environmental art, siege demo zone. So we've been talking about this for a while, of course, and now we're actually getting close to building out the brand new siege demo and siege, what will be a siege scenario for you folks. That I think, at least I certainly hope so. Hope it will surprise you. So Tyler's been building it out. He's doing certainly yeoman's work, trying to get as much done as he can to make the area around what the Builders Brigade has built and what Ben has built look really good. So that is certainly coming in the next couple weeks. So number 11, art, UI, various. James finished the art and assets for the Ability Builder UI. See, finished. How do you like that? And updated the chat UI art to fit the style of the current UI. Andrew, you want to take the next one?
I'll just add to that. If you've, we sort of do things in two passes of like dev UI and then a real UI. If you are in IT and you've seen an ability builder on Hawking, that is the dev UI, which is basically just like, the server just does like printf some HTML out to the client, and server engineers are, deep server engineers are writing web pages like it's GeoCities from 1995, and that is the UI that you see right now. The one that James has been doing is the real one that is not actually visible if you've been in Hawking. So and please don't blame like Rob's printf HTML on James.
Exactly, and that's a big thing for us. And I've talked a little bit about this on the forums when in regards to crafting, that when we can spit out a UI very quickly, as we can with the dev UI, that's a very good thing. It may be ugly as sin, but the fact is, it's really helpful because you folks and we folks get to do things with it without having to waste the time of Mr. Koo and the other folks who work on a UI. It's a very quick and easy thing for the engineers to do, and it allows us to do testing, allows you folks to do testing without having to already have a full UI. So it's a great little device. It's useful, again, for both us and you, and it's a total win.
Yeah. So, number 12, animation system improvements. Like, there's just a lot of, little sloppy bits in the animation system. I put it up and I moved on, and there's just rough edges about I'll give you one of them. Like if you're walking forward and then you hit reverse and turn around, like there will be like this, as your forward speed goes down to 0 and then negative to go backwards, there'll be this brief point in the center where your speed is 0, and there'll be like one frame when like you'll like twitch slightly back towards your idle animation because you're not moving. Just for instance, stuff like that. And the aggregate result of it is animations just not really flowing. So a lot of small little things like that are getting nailed down, and animations not popping, not twitching, not being weird, looking like, hey, this is a nice game. So
exactly, as I promised you folks last year, as we were putting in the animation system, and even before that, when people were harsh, though deserved, that our animation system wasn't yet up to snuff. You can see already how far we've come, with Andrew's new system and the work now being done by Mike on this. We have an animation system that is literally getting better and better and better, every single week. And we're not done yet. We're going to continue to work on it. We're going to continue to iterate on it, and deliver an animation system to you that will meet the goals not only of our backers, but as I've always told you about Andrew and his, desire is not strong enough word. I think insistence of having a smooth animation system, something that looks really great and really responsive. And I always promised you that we were going to deliver on that. Obviously, we are, and we're still going to go further. So, number 13, VFX Art. So, Mike completed the first pass on realm-specific VFX for the Trebuchet and Magic Mortars, as well as ongoing assets improvements for the Mage VFX. So, yeah, more sparklies. Mike is happy. Number 14, and I believe, no, we have one more after that, Characters 2.0. So, all the planned assets, at least those that we planned up to now, are currently in, and we're finishing work on LODs, on bugs, performance, MIP mapping, blah, 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 blah. Lots of great stuff with 2.0. It is so far shaping up to be what we hoped, which is something that makes things look better.
Yeah, I like my character now. I like his armor. I like, the detail of, like a little bit of embossing on his pauldrons. It's making me happier.
Exactly, and I think when you folks see it, and especially see the finished version, you'll be thrilled. So, last but not least, Andrew, why don't you finish that one off?
You want me to go to number 15?
Yep.
I mean, I could dive deeper into the.
Go ahead, dive away.
So, also a bunch of other just like little visual things. You might have noticed characters in the distance were just like generally shimmery, and we've done some stuff in how they get LOD'd at a distance to, to smooth that out a lot more, and that's on Hatchery now. That was just, it was actually just like going in and fine tuning a bunch of knobs, yeah, there's some also just you might note like little details of you lean left, you lean right, and the vertices between your upper body and your lower body weren't quite welded correctly, so there could be seams or gaps, and that's getting taken care of. And lots and lots of minor animation bug fixes too. Scott and Sandra have done a lot about those. Just things like, oh yeah, the attachment point for arrows needed to be moved slightly. Yeah, oh, you're carrying the bomb. Well, we should move that, and you can go down the list. But it's, yeah, finally, it's all getting taken care of, though. So, number 15?
Yeah.
Go back to you.
Okay. So, last but not least, work in progress, Mage outfits. So, John finished up the Arthurian version materials as well as the TDD modeling. He's hoping to finish up the TDD materials today and then begin on the last outfit for our initial testing. So, obviously good.
Yep.
So, a couple other things, and then we'll get to Q&A. Certainly, we want to wrap up by 4 o'clock today. I mean, by 5 o'clock today. We got to change the time on that clock.
Oh.
So, number one, we don't know about a test this weekend. We're still trying to track down a crashing bug.
A server-side crashing bug.
Yep.
So that's not good.
So hopefully we will get it done today, but we don't have that much longer. So unless we can find it, we won't do a test because there's no point in having a test this weekend where the server can go bye-bye every so often.
Yeah, we know what the problem is, which is when you cast some kind of spell that creates a trigger volume that reacts to stuff entering and leaving it, and then changes occur to buildings that are inside that volume, then the server then the physics server does something really sad. But I do not. We're not sure how much longer it's going to take to fix that. So we were super happy and super enthusiastic, and last night we had a build that was just like, yeah, we tested this out and this is good to go this weekend, and then we tested it more today and suddenly we found this. So
yep.
I'm sad,
but we'll see. Hopefully we can we'll find it, but if not, we'll test next week because I can't imagine it'll take more than next week to find it. So before we go to Q&A...
well, I'll also add, if Tim sends out an email to IT folks to pile on to Hawking, help him do that so that we can have a test.
Well, of course. So last item has nothing to do with CU. You folks who've watched our streams for a while probably know what I'm going to say. I'll try to keep it very brief. Yesterday there was a tragedy, an unspeakable tragedy in Christchurch, New Zealand. As somebody who has family and friends in Pittsburgh, and as you folks know, one was only a couple blocks from the shooting at the synagogue, to see what has happened at those two mosques in Christchurch, has hit home again, just as it did in Pittsburgh. It's a terrible tragedy. It's a reminder to, I hope, all of us that we as humans, regardless of race, gender, sexuality, even political affiliation, we have to come together. We've got to stop this kind of hate spreading. It is a terrible, terrible tragedy. So many innocent people have lost their lives, and all I can say is not only would I like to express the sympathy of everyone at CSE, but my hopes, though I am sure, unfortunately, it won't be the last. My hopes that it would be the last, and we could all figure out how we can come together in a much better way, because as humans, we need to do better. And my sympathy, prayers, and support to anyone who is affected by this, again, unspeakable tragedy. So I just wanted to say that. Okay, let's go to Q&A, please.
All right, give us your questions. Here's one from Salty Chew. Salty Chew asks, since contested islands are where we will see the first pass of the landscape-changing tech when one side occupies certain places on the map, or when ownership of a specific plot changes, are there technical issues with this beta system? So we've been able to do that for a long time. The reason it's not turned on is we have not gotten to a place where we can do that with zero hitches on the client. And that's an ongoing thing, and I want to revisit it now that we're in 64-bit land, where we have more memory to just sort of use as a buffer, to kind of set up everything before we swap it out. So Lee has also, oops, not supposed to say his name on the stream yet.
It's okay.
Anyway, so we've been doing a lot of work also on setting up sort of a separately queryable like thread-safe physics version of the scene, so things can be more asynchronous. Like there's not the main game loop won't stall if it's like trying to query the terrain while the terrain is changing. Which also allows us to run server-side pathfinding while things change, and we're getting into a better and better place. Once that particular piece of work lands on the client, it'll be time to reevaluate turning that back on.
And Andrew's Freudian slip aside, the fact is we have been hiring people. I have mentioned that in other streams, so yeah, we've been doing very well with our recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, I am not sad I am sad for the game industry at a lot of what has happened lately, because friends of mine have definitely been affected by several studios that have let people go, but if the wheel turns. I used to be able to recite like the opening paragraph from all the Wheel of Time novels.
Nice.
In a distant age, an age in the future, whatever. I've forgotten it now. It's been so long since I gave up.
I can do Mark Antony's speech from, Julius Caesar.
I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him.
Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. And I can go on. The reason why I know that, not because I'm a huge Shakespearean fan, but that was one of the speeches I had to give in one of my classes back at school. So yeah, I memorized it. It's still in there. Thank you, Shakespeare.
Yeah, I was so angry at HBO because the Rome series, which was
Right.
awesome, and then they had no budget to have like the giant riot that Mark Antony
Yep.
sparked with that speech, and so they were just like, they just opened the season with the two guys coming back from the speech going, "Oh my God, what a great speech!" It was like, oh, you didn't cut that. Anyway.
I have to rewatch Rome. I love that series. I haven't. I need to binge it again.
All right. Odilvik asks, have you notified players in game that they need to upgrade Windows to 64-bit?
No, but we're going to notify them via email because obviously, Odilvik, as you know, not everyone who has an account comes in and plays. So we'll be sending out a message to them. We're putting in today's update. We'll send another reminder and let people know. Look, the good news is you really need to do it anyway, so you might as well go ahead and do it now.
We have a certain amount of hardware info for everyone who does a beta test. That's part of the beta test agreement. We're not going to be, once the game is live, the tracking will decline a bit, I assume. But
oh yeah.
Unknown RH asks, if the game launch is scheduled at fall 2019, when would ideally CSE want to start Beta 2 and the following betas?
We said winter, not fall. Beta 2 will start as soon as it can. I mean, that's just the bottom line, but we have to get a lot more done. We're not rushing into Beta 2. We're not going to rush into Beta 3. We have to get Beta 1 in really good shape. We have to have the classes in. We need to have the scenarios in. We need to get a lot of other things done because there's no point in calling Beta 2 until we're there. And I don't want to say there's no rush to get there because we certainly want to be out this winter, but we certainly aren't going to rush it just to rush the game out the door. It just makes no sense.
We're not going to rush calling it something that it's not.
Exactly.
But oh God, I'm rushing.
Yeah.
Demi asks, once the large siege scenario is complete, will you be streaming the event to show how far the game has come? I would like to see the druids in action.
At some point, absolutely. We won't stream the first, test because stuff always goes wrong. It doesn't matter what game, what team. But once we know it's in good shape, we'll live stream it.
Yeah, that's definitely the place where we'll lift that gate.
Yep. Now the good news I can tell.
Will druids be in that scenario? I am not actually sure. If we just have like core DPS mage classes, that might, and everything else about the scenario is good to go, then druids might not be in. We might lift. Think of this as a good thing. We might start streaming before there are druids.
We're going to stream, and there are really multiple levels of streaming where we stream it live, where we stream or post videos from recordings, and then there's when we lift it for all the players. It's not binary, just as it wasn't, for example, with Warhammer. It's just not something we'll go, hey, all streaming is okay. And I've said this before. There'll certainly be a limited lift, and then when we're ready, it'll be a full lift. But the key is for us with the initial pass of this demo, and I'll give you one tidbit about it, which is kind of cool. Right now, we have a 9 million block building in the demo. So that's going to leave a mark when we start blowing it up. So, we're excited, nervous, in living fear of what's going to happen when a whole lot of you folks, and we don't mean 20 or 30 because that's for tourists, we're talking hundreds of people at least on both sides with NPCs and or bots filling things out, all throwing stuff at the same building at the same time. That's the kind of stress test that we need to do sooner rather than later, and that's part of what we're going to be doing over the next 2 weeks once we get the viable version of the building into a scenario that we can play. and that's moving along really well. The Builders Brigade is doing awesomely as always. So we're kind of excited to show you what they've been working on as well as what we've been working on with Characters 2.0, with mages, with improved particle effect systems, all the cool stuff that's going to be in that demo.
Yeah, and on the topic of that, I noticed that Colin and Matt did not send in their top 10 items.
They didn't.
So
go ahead.
Colin also added in some fairly good building performance improvements to kind of move like the big long calculations onto the building server and out of the physics server, so that the physics server maintains its responsiveness. And then also Matt has last mile on networkable building placed objects. You've been able to hang torches on walls in Cube for a while, but getting that networked is the next step. And he's he and Colin ran into a little bit of trouble because they have a big merge to do between their two work, but that's just about done too. So call those 16 and 17.
There you go.
And so torches will be on the wall set when you knock the walls over.
Thank God. We definitely need to get some more light, to shed more light on the game.
Yes.
Especially inside.
Strike really wants to know, what flower is on your shirt?
That looks like a bird of paradise.
Bird of paradise. We'll go with that.
Yeah, because you got it's just a very monochrome bird of paradise. But there you see here's the bird and here's its like crest thing, and normally that would be blue with orange or pink or something there. But I mean, I lived in LA. Like every apartment complex had birds of paradise.
Okay. Amazing bit of knowledge, and as always, unscripted. God, I love doing these things.
Yeah, well, I was dating a botanist.
Oh,
so.
that too.
Lotaween asks, do you have an estimate for when the B&Bs in the character reveals will be incorporated into the test build?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, what is the scoop on the Banes and Boons? I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. It shouldn't be long though.
Gladmax1 asks, question for Andrew. Will we be getting a 3D resolution scaling option in CU?
I'm assuming you're talking about, I want to run my monitor and my UI at 4K, but I want to like render the game world at 1080p or whatever for frame rate. So I have like super crisp UI and maybe lower resolution on the game world. Is that the question you're asking? Yeah.
Don't forget 30-second delay.
I'll look out for
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Gladmax1 says exactly.
Okay. So that's so the answer is yes, we will do it. We need to do a lot more work on just configs and options, but it's something that's totally very, very easy to do. Like every modern game is like, the way we work is we sort of render this super raw image that's not color balanced or and then we do stuff like exposure control and post-process effects like the light rays and all those things, and then finally like blast that into into the main buffer. It's not like we're rendering directly into that. So every modern game engine works that way, where we do lighting in a separate pass, etc., and then so it's a very, very easy thing to do. I'll go get my George Pokin stick. Actually, Dave or Wiley could handle that too. So yeah, we'll do that. Good idea. Good point.
Scott Florence asks, what current state classes do you enjoy playing with most? Not what you have to play with most for fixes.
None really, because these aren't until recently they weren't the real classes. We've been saying that for like ever. So for me, I'm going to start having fun with the classes when they're in, and I can really get to play with them. My guess is I'll tend to favor the mages, as I usually do, mages and archers, but we'll see.
Yeah. In the state they have been in so far, I know my heart should be with Viking, but Forest Stalker. It's just, I love being able to do the aim, switch into manual aiming mode and lead my target by just the right amount, and the Forest Stalker has a lot of really cool buffs and debuffs that come off of who you shoot, and I like that. I like chaos magic. I like, not just direct damage. I like setting things up to cause all kinds of chaos and then just like, boop, kill, tip over with the kill shot. Borderlands, I'm a siren, always.
To Shut Kid Up asks, with the current progress made in the game up to this point, how do you feel about that progress and evolution of the game? Frustrated, pleased, or somewhere in the middle?
Oh, I mean, that's easy.
Frustrated. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want it done already.
Yeah. But, and here's the big but, amazingly pleased. So, I don't want to rely on the, very tropish, hey, good things come to those who wait. No. On the other hand, what we've been able to do with our engine to date, the kind of performance you folks have seen, not just two devs sitting on a couch telling you about our performance. You backers have seen the performance. You've been in the large-scale testing. You've seen things that no other engine so far has shown they can do. So, as Andrew and I both said, yeah, we are frustrated that it's taken this long. On the other hand, when I can go in and see the amazing things that Andrew and the team have cooked up, then I smile. And, do I wish it had been 3 years? Absolutely. On the other hand, in order to do what, we are able to do now, it did take longer. And I think at the end, it will be the right trade-off. Because when we can have large-scale battles that, again, no other engine has shown they can deliver, not in real time. And anytime I say this, never any disrespect to other developers, especially the folks, for example, at CCP, with EVE Online, who have very large-scale battles. But what we're doing is different. Ours are real time. Ours are, thousands of people beating on each other, with magic and with sticks and just running past them, again, in real time. And that's a hell of an accomplishment. And so as frustrated as, I can get, being able to see that and being able to see performance just continuing to get better and better and better, I just smile all over. Like, really all over.
I don't want to see all the places you smile.
Don't worry, you never will.
Rubikai asks, in the future, once you have successfully launched, will new content be in regular small updates or larger expansions?
Both. We're going to follow the same model, certainly that we pushed back in the Dark Age days, of regular updates, extender packs, as we've talked about, and expansions. We think that you folks, just as I believed you folks did as well with Dark Age and with Warhammer, you deserve to get that from your developers. And so we're going to be doing just that. I love the model then. I love the model now.
Hambone Flex on the YouTube chat asks, what are your thoughts on games that launch expansions that render the old content pointless, and how would you combat that with Camelot Unchained in the future?
So that's a really great point, a really great question. The nice thing about our...
So I'm going to say it's
Sure.
less of a problem because we do not have so much like very, very bespoke handcrafted stuff. Like go back to Destiny. The Vault of Glass is probably the coolest raid they did, and no one cared about it in 3 months, but you know, it was such a cool experience. But because our players are more about creating experiences for one another as opposed to you know, the experience that we do, we don't have quite that much of a problem. It's not like here's 1,000 handcrafted quests and you know, 995 of them don't give you loot that's relevant to you, because you know, we're just not making that kind of thing. And you know, it's, to a degree, stuff is going to scale with the player base. You know, the same content will scale with the player base because you'll be, you know, there will be other players. And also, horizontal progression means that it's just not, you know, there isn't the power creep where there's a huge mismatch between two different players.
And that was the biggest point I was going to make, and Andrew's spot on with that. You know, when we decided in the beginning to do horizontal progression, this is one of the things we thought about. A lot of the reasons, one of the reasons for it. In a typical vertical progression system, that sort of thing can happen far more often. Because as Andrew says, if you've handcrafted, or not handcrafted even, all these quests, and they're all set up to give you a certain level of gear or experience or cash, and all of a sudden you come up with an expansion that says to you, hey, thanks for capping out all that great raid gear, and now, and you guys will know exactly which games I'm talking about, now you can start, you know, a character, go through these quests, get into the new area, or simply take an old character and get into the new area, and all that great and lovely gear you got is now useless, or just not optimal anymore when you're going on raids. In our game, that's not going to happen. It's not how the game is designed. The other thing about expansions, and one of the things that I'm really big on, and I can't wait to do, are more races and more classes. You know, when you can deliver more races, like we will be able to, without the usual expense of adding races, which means all the racial gear and the racial classes, class quests, excuse me, that means you have a lot more freedom to add races, because you don't have to look at it and go, wow, this is going to cost us a fortune, and it won't. So we'll be able to do that. So I think, you know, you never want to guarantee most things, but I think it's a fairly safe bet that our expansions will not be invalidating gear. It will not be invalidating your current classes or races. So if I were a CU player, I'd be actually looking forward to the expansions more than other games, because it's just going to give you slightly different ways to play, different areas to play in, without the fear that, oh my God, I've grinded to get this gear, and now that I've gotten this gear, you know, CSE is going to do the nasty to us, or to me, and my gear, my time has all been pointless.
And also, you know, there will be things that will change the dynamics in interesting ways. You know, like I've said for a very long time, like, one of the early expansions I would really like to see would be naval combat. And that'll change the strategic value of certain points on the map.
I know what's going to happen now. So, Andrew, imagine a can of worms. You have just opened it.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
You know,
the cards and letters are going to be coming in.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You know, just, well, you know, a point that is far... You know, the value of a point on the coast. A point on the coast is more vulnerable to ships than it was before. A point on the other hand, you know, a point far inland isn't vulnerable to ships, but it is also not a place you can use to launch a naval attack from. So that would change things.
Absolutely.
So I'm not going to say there won't be shifts in the game because of expansions. And no, we have not committed to naval combat. I just think it would be a cool add.
Absolutely.
Because long ships, damn it.
It will be. It is something we've talked about as well in the past, but I know what I'm going to be talking about in the forums over the next week. But no, Andrew's right. It is something that I'm eager to do as well. I've said the same thing on the forum, so I'm, you know,
it's definitely, this is not a thing I'm going, like that entire monologue right there is probably my entire involvement with naval combat in 2019, though. So
no worries. So I'm just, to quote Mel Brooks, I'm just tugging on your lariat a little. It is something that I do want myself. It is, I've said the same thing on the forums. I think it's something that can really add to the game. It is something I definitely want to see. And, as Andrew touched on, I think it can be designed in a way where it really isn't changing all that much. It's just giving players another way or another thing to do in the game. So I look forward to it. I absolutely have it on my love to have list, just as I do other.
Absolutely not a launch feature. Let me
God.
Underscore that so
hard.
hard.
God, zero. I mean, literally zero chance of
probably
that happening.
Not even in the first year of the game's life.
Yeah.
That's
agreed. It is something that we both want to do. It's something that I think could be really fucking cool.
Just bring it up as I think that that would be a huge can of worms that would change. Some things would be more important, some things would be less important if that got added.
And that's part of what you do in an expansion. When you think about it, and then we'll get to the last question, or maybe a couple more. When you think about it, one of the things that some of the great expansions in games have done is given players other cool moments, whether they're water cooler moments, as we and others like to call them, or things that they can do very differently, even though they don't have this huge effect on the game, like, for example, having an expansion which makes all your hard-earned raid gear or other gear useless, but it still adds a bit of excitement, a bit of, a challenge. And so naval combat could do that as well.
Looking for a good ending question, folks. I think I saw one from Hambone Flex that is just fun.
Ooh, I like that.
I think it's fun anyway.
Hambone
God. Flex asks, if the zombie apocalypse happens tomorrow, which 3 classes would you have on your squad and why?
Oh, wow. That's an awesome question. That's really good, and I actually don't have... Well, let's see. Maybe I have an answer. Do you have an answer?
Definitely not the Black Knight, because... I don't... You never want... No melee classes. I'll just say outright no melee classes, because, if you're hand-to-hand with zombies, you've already... you're already bitten. I think I'd probably go, probably go Archer, Healer, Crafter.
I would go...
I'm not going to say which realm.
I certainly would go with the Flame Warden as my number one, because you got to burn them. I mean, we got to see some zombies burn, right, man? Got to burn that flesh. So that's number one. Definitely go with a healer, as Andrew says, and as well an archer, because, when you've seen The Walking Dead and have watched it as much as I do, having a character that can shoot a bow from a distance and save that precious ammo, I am all for that. So, but Flame Warden first, because some people just want to see the world burn. In this case, I want to see zombies burn. But that was a fun question. Do you got a great one?
I don't have a great one.
Okay, then we'll end on that one. We've got a lot still to do today. I want to get Andrew back to help out on trying to figure out what's going on with the build. Maybe again to preserve any chance.
Oh, we know exactly what's going on. We just haven't figured out what to do about it.
Right. And hopefully still get a test for you folks this weekend. I want to wrap up with, as always, saying we thank you very much for your support. We thank you for your patience. Between Characters 2.0, improved performance, new siege scenario, new siege weapons with the magic mortar, VFX coming in from Mike for the trebuchets and for the magic mortars. I think you folks are really gonna like what you see from our rather big building base siege. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting, and we are really looking forward to see what happens when all of you folks start pounding on the building at the same time. And as the builders, any member of the Builders Brigade who's been working on it can tell you, it's just going to look awesome. And running a siege or being part of a siege on it, I think that's going to be an extremely memorable experience for you folks. And as always, it only gets better from here. So again, we thank you for your support. We thank you for your patience. Please, especially in light of what happened yesterday, have a safe weekend, and we'll see you all next week.
See you later.
Bye.